to welcome you to the Planning Commission meeting of August 23rd, 2022. Our first order of business was the call to order, which we've done. We now move into the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd ask you to stand and join me in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Staff, would you please conduct the roll call?
Commissioner Neal?
Here.
Commissioner Christensen?
Here.
Commissioner Gibson?
Here.
Commissioner Jorgensen? Commissioner Covarrubias?
Here.
Commissioner Davis?
Here.
Chairperson Kogler?
Here.
The record will reflect that Commissioner Jorgensen's absent. She did notify us ahead of time that she was going to be unable to attend this meeting.
Very good, thank you. May we have staff introductions, please?
Warren Frace, Community Development Director.
Marcy Reynoso and Ashley Peterson, Administrative Assistant.
Isaac Rosen, Assistant City Attorney. Nice to see everyone in person.
Okay, thank you, staff. Our next agenda item is for general public comments regarding matters not on the agenda. Is there anybody that would like to speak to an item that's not on our agenda this evening? See none in the chambers. Do we have anybody remotely, Marcy?
No callers.
Okay. Very good, thank you. Next agenda item is those items that are proposed to be tabled or rescheduled, and I would like staff to please let us know of the item that we're talking about this evening, or not talking about this evening.
Yes, there's one item that will be rescheduled tonight. That's zoning code text amendment to chapter 21.33 of the zoning code. Had to do with changes to our medical marijuana delivery ordinance. That ordinance is not ready yet. We're still working with the legal counsel on getting that into final form. We do expect it will be ready for your next meeting. So we're asking you to basically continue this item, date certain, to the September 13th Planning Commission agenda. Yes, please. Okay.
Commissioner Neal.
I move to continue zoning text amendment to chapter 21.33 of Article 2A of Title 21 to a date certain of September 13th, 2022.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion from Commissioner Neal, a second from Commissioner Gibson. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask, please call the roll.
Commissioner Neal?
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson?
Aye.
Commissioner Christensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Covarrubias?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Chairperson Kogler?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Good. Okay, we will move into item G on our agenda, which is public hearings. We have two this evening. The first of those is a time extension 22-06 for tentative tract map 3060, amendment P16-0029. The property is located at 1644 Kleck Road, APN 025-402-022, and the applicant is Herod Homes. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. This is a request by Mike Herod for a time extension for the tract 3060. This is a request for the time extension. It's a 6.4 acre site, 7 proposed residential lots. The lots range in size from 20,000 square feet up to almost 2 acres. This 7 acre site is located off of Kleck Road, which is north of Union Road, and then it spans across over to Montebello Oaks, which is still, again, north of Union Road. It's in the Union 46 specific plan. Again, a vicinity map showing the site. And then this is the the tentative map. So looking up above, so Kleck Road is here along the left-hand side there. And then Montebello Oaks is over on this side. Sorry, up to the screen to your right. There's an existing driveway coming up, serving some homes in the area. This would remain the private driveway and serve 1, 2, 3 parcels here along with the existing. And then the improvements for the 4 lots on this side are with a new cul-de-sac street or with a new drive-in from that area off of Montebello Oaks. So this was approved back in 2016, has had a few time extensions, was due to expire in February of this year, and Mr. Herod requested a time extension be processed. This project is in the engineering department going through what's necessary to record the map. So it is in process and anticipated that this final map will be going to the city council for approval very soon. However, just to ensure that the entitlement stayed valid to allow for that final map to record is what the request for this time extension is proposed for. Mr. Herod is here, as well as David Athey, city engineer, if there's any specific questions on this time extension request. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with Commissioner Neal with any questions.
So I noticed up here on the presentation, it says a 1-year time extension. And then in the agenda item, it says a 2-year time extension.
I think a 1-year time extension is all that's necessary for this request tonight.
That's it for me.
I do think we wrote it with a 2-year.
I was going to check the resolution. I'm not sure. We'll have to check with the resolution.
Just to jump on Darren, we ended up writing it for a 2-year extension just in case on the off chance so that we didn't have to come back in a year's time and go through this exercise. But certainly a 1 year would be sufficient, I believe, for Mr. Harrod's needs, but the resolution is written for 2 years.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Christensen, any questions?
I have no questions at this time.
Okay. Mr. Gibson?
I have no questions at this time either.
Mr. Covarrubias?
Only one question for Darren. So if we do the 2-year, that leaves them with 1 2-year remaining. Is that right? If I'm doing my math right? They've gotten 2 1 years, right?
That's correct, but there was an automatic time extension from the state. So we'd have to take a look at the current subdivision map act and see how many specific time extensions are left. Okay. It varies. There's a lot of things that can change the number it gets. So right off the top of my head, I don't know, but I know we're anticipating to get the time extension or the map recorded fairly soon. So
okay.
2 years should be plenty.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Davis, any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I guess it's not really a question, it's kind of a question. So if I understand right, there's absolutely no change to the tentative track map, no change to any conditions, it's simply the time extension.
That's correct.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, any applicant comments? Mr. Herod, would you like to? Okay, this is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing and see if there's comment. First of all, in the room, does anybody have a comment they'd like to make? Seeing and hearing none. Marcy, do we have anybody calling in?
No callers.
Okay, we do not. So I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the Planning Commission for comments and or motions. Let's start with Commissioner Covarrubias.
I don't have any further comments, but I will make a motion to approve the request for a 2-year time extension for tentative track 3060, amendment to February 9th, 2024.
We have a motion on the floor.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Motion from Commissioner Covarrubias, second from Commissioner Gibson. Is there any discussion on it? Any discussion points, Commissioner Davis?
No, I'm fine.
Okay,
I'm ready to vote.
With that, then, I would ask staff to please call the roll.
Commissioner Covarrubias?
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson?
Aye.
Commissioner Christensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Neal?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye. Aye.
Chairperson Kogler.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Great, thank you. All right, we will move on to our next public hearing, which is another time extension, 22-01 for vesting tentative tract parcel map, PR 19-0070, P19-0093, PD 19-07, PR 19-007, OTR 19-26, AMD 21-01. That's a lot of alphabets and numerals. It's located at 2548 Spring Street, APN 008-121-001. The applicant is Scott Stokes for 2548 Spring LLC. May we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Chairperson Kogler. So this is, as you said, a time extension for, it's essentially for the parcel map, but it was part of a larger mixed-use project located at 2548 Spring Street. So the project request would be to extend the entitlements that are associated with the project. As I said, it's the parcel map that's due to expire actually back in February of this year. We did receive a timely application to extend the map back at that time. There is also an amended plan development that is still active for this project, and then they did receive an oak tree removal permit back with the original entitlements. So this is a map of the site. This is where the existing Moose Lodge is located. That Moose Lodge does still exist at the rear of the property. It is slated eventually to be removed, to be replaced with another residential building. So it's at the corner of 26th and Spring Street, across the street from Flampson Middle School. So looking at the site plan that was approved, there were two buildings. The first is a mixed-use building. There's about 4,000 square feet of commercial space on the ground floor, and then I believe it's 9 residential units on the second and third floor. As I said, the Planning Commission did approve an amendment to the rear building that used both fractional density and a density bonus to have 18 units in that rear building. I think I'm going to summarize the same thing here. So phase 1 is that front building, and then phase 2 is the rear building. So here is a look at the architecture. No proposed changes to that in the draft resolution. This would just be to extend the entitlements. So as I said, there does include a tentative parcel map. It would essentially split the parcel 2 ways, east and south. So that red line there indicates where the new parcel line, the new property line would be located between parcel 1 and 2. It would put the 2 phases on separate lots. So a little bit of background, this project was ultimately approved or first approved by the City Council back in early 2020. That is obviously right before we went into the lockdown for COVID. So a challenging time to get a project started, but the applicant did apply for building permits and received those in late September of 2020, that same year. About a year, and they did begin construction. About a year after that, the Planning Commission considered the amendment to Building B, and we have reviewed building permits for that, but we've not issued them at this time. So Building A did get underway. They had some inspections. The last successful building inspection occurred in February of 2021, and I became aware that the project was not proceeding about Thanksgiving of that year, Thanksgiving 2021, about that time. The building inspectors did go out for a site visit back in March of this year and noted some deficiencies of things that needed to be addressed. But for about 9 months, a year, the project has sat vacant. The neighbors who live on the north end of Spring Street are aware of this building. It's sat for quite some time with exposed, it did sit through a winter season with exposed plywood. It's a big concern of the building and planning departments for the city. So we certainly don't want to do anything that would slow down progress of this project, and so staff ultimately, we'd have brought this time extension to the commission and want you to consider that, but there are some additional kind of extenuating circumstances that we also need to consider tonight. So the applicant has provided a timeline to get the project back on schedule. I know this was hard to read in the agenda packet, but they do intend to get started. Their timeline there does show them starting to do some work this week. The building inspectors were out this morning and took the pictures you saw in the previous slide. There were some windows delivered to the site today, so that does seem like a positive development, that there is some action going on there. Assuming that the project stays on the trajectory shown in this timeline, they do project to complete work in April of next year. So that's their projected timeline. It would be to be complete in this late spring of 2023. The original project did qualify for a Class 32 CEQA exemption. The project was consistent with the general plan and the Uptown Town Center specific plan. It's on a site of less than 5 acres within city limits. The site did not have any value as habitat. It's the Moose Lodge in a parking lot. No significant traffic, noise, air quality, or water quality impacts were expected, and the project can be adequately served by existing utilities and public services. The Planning Commission does have some options, and I think this discussion we should have this evening will be related to those options. The first would just be to approve the one-year time extension for the vesting parcel map, which would extend the entitlements to February of 2023. Staff does have some concerns about getting this building winterized, and so February is obviously a bit late to get the building winterized, and so the applicant, I believe, is on the line, and so can give us some idea of their plan other than what is shown in that timeline. But the Planning Commission certainly has the opportunity, if they would like, to grant a longer time extension. That is what the applicant would prefer, a 2-year time extension that would take them out to February 4th of 2024. Another consideration would be for the Planning Commission to continue this hearing for another 2 weeks to ensure that the applicant does actually get the construction ball rolling, to get clarity on their timeline and to make sure that we see some progress and that the applicant understands the concern that the city has about the lack of progress for their project. And certainly the Planning Commission could amend any of those options that are there. That does conclude staff's report. And as I said, I do believe the applicant is on the line if we want to hear from them.
Thank you, Katie. Mr. Stokes, are you with us?
I believe I'm forgetting Harry's last name. That's terrible. Hamilton. Hamilton is on the line and would be the better person to speak first.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hamilton, are you with us?
Yes.
Okay, you have the floor if you'd like to provide us with an overview of the project.
Sure. Yeah, windows got delivered today. They're slated to be installed the first week of September. Following that, the roof goes on. Should be no problem getting the building dried in by October 15th. Start of the first day of the rainy season. And so at that point, everything should be full speed ahead.
Okay, thank you. If you'd stand by, if the commission has any questions, you may be able to assist in that as well.
Sure.
We will now bring it back to the commission for any questions of staff and or the applicant. Commissioner Davis, would you like to start us?
I just have a question of staff. Option 2, you said, is actually what the applicant is requesting. Could you explain again why staff is recommending 1? I think you're just wanting to see it winterized as soon as possible.
Definitely want to see it winterized, but it seems like February might be a good time for another check-in. And so a 1-year time extension would take us to February. So that's kind of staff's recommendation. But yes, the applicant has requested a 2-year extension.
But they could get another 1 year after that check-in. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Covarrubias, questions?
So Katie, if we were to just do the 1 year as a check-in kind of thing, would they have to come back to us for the additional 1 year?
That's correct. You would see this again. If they could potentially get their subdivision improvements completed and record the map, and then you would not see it. But if they did not complete those improvements, then you would see it again next February.
Okay. So you indicated that the improvements that are done so far have gone through a winter season. You said the building inspector. Was there any feedback from the building inspector thus far?
I believe the building official is on the line. Is that the case, Marcy? Yeah, Brian Cowan, the building official, is on the line. I think there is some concern about the structural integrity of the plywood that did go through the winter, and there will need to be some testing of that plywood. And now I'm getting beyond my depth. So if Mr. Cowan wants to comment, please do.
Yes, good evening. This is Brian Cowan. So when the inspectors met with Mr. Hamilton on the site earlier this year, we discussed the condition of the materials. And so prior to approval of the inspections, the engineer of record will either certify the material as being suitable or it will be replaced.
And I apologize. How long will that process take?
It would just be part of the ordinary inspection process.
Okay. All right, no other questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Neal.
Yeah, this is a question of staff. If we were to approve just the 1 year or continue the hearing for 2 weeks to get clarity on the timeline, what are our options if nothing moves forward?
I'll defer that question to Warren, if you would, please.
Sorry if that's a tough question.
So I think there is a concern if the building continues to remain in its existing condition, it'll deteriorate and basically, become a, potentially blighted property. There are mechanisms and remedies that the city could invoke to deal with that sort of situation. That would be one benefit of option 3 is if we don't see the project moving forward and it does look like there may be an issue where it will remain in this condition over the winter again, that would give us time to work with the building official and the city attorney to kind of develop a list of options for the city to consider. And that would likely include the city council eventually getting involved.
Can we go back to the schedule, please? So we expect to see Tyvek on the exterior this week.
So my understanding, and again, Mr. Cowan, jump in, is that they will need to prove the structural, they'll need to have a shear inspection before they can wrap the building. So they are showing a tieback exterior being placed, but they will need an inspection before that occurs.
That's correct, Katie.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Okay. Mr. Christensen, any questions?
Thank you. This might be more for the applicant. I guess my question is, part of the requirement is completion of public improvements. Have you started any of those public improvements, or are any required up front at this portion of time that would be a key factor for delay later on?
I believe the majority of the improvements are frontage improvements, which typically you want to do after construction so that you don't damage the new improvements. I believe they've applied for the permits to do those. The city engineers here can confirm, but I believe there has been some review of their plans, but they have not started construction on those as far as I'm aware.
Okay. You know if they've already applied for those improvements?
David Athy, city engineer. Yes, they have.
Okay.
So the frontage improvements are designed as they stand right now. The frontage on 24th Street, or excuse me, Spring Street is almost complete. There's some overhead wires that need to come down and be undergrounded. The frontage on 26th Street still needs to be done. However, that's, as Katie mentioned, you could do that, late in the process. So
sure.
Nearing completion of the building.
I'm just trying to get a sense of their movement forward. So they've already come in for the other.
So so that's a great question. So when we issue building permits, all the other permits have to be approved and issued at the same time. So grading, frontage improvements, your building improvements, before they can final the building, all those other permits, any other permits have to be final before the building is occupancy.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. This is kind of more of a general question, Katie. If we give them a 1-year extension and for some reason we come to an expiration on that, nothing moves forward, how does that affect the affordable housing density bonus? And does it revert back to a pool, or because we gave that to them as part of the development to increase density and to move forward? I don't remember the date on that, but so can you explain to me how that would be affected?
Sure. So the affordable housing density bonus that was given is actually a separate process from the surplus density units that we've established here in the city of Paso Robles. The affordable housing density bonus is a requirement from the state. If a developer is willing to deed restrict units for a certain amount of time, I believe it's 55 years, then the city is required by state law to allow additional density. And so, and to also get variance is the wrong word, modifications to development standards in addition to additional density. So this is unrelated to the surplus pool of local units. So they don't necessarily disappear, but we wouldn't get those affordable units.
We wouldn't get they wouldn't get the density. Okay. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. That's all I have for right now.
Mr. Gibson.
Thank you. Katie, I'm looking at this timeline, and unless I'm completely misreading it, we're already behind, right?
Yes, so I sent the building inspectors out today to, as you note, construction was meant to begin yesterday, and there was no evidence that any construction had occurred, but there was a delivery of materials, so that's the only progress we've seen. And yes, I think it's an accurate observation that we are now 2 days behind.
I mean, this timeline indicated that the second layer of the roof would have been done by tonight, and that the building would have been wrapped with Tyvek by tonight. And I was by there a day or two ago, and it looked very similar to the picture that you showed me. So is there any conversation as to what the real timeline is? Because it's not this.
So we did request more information from the applicant, and they are here. The report was that windows were delivered, and next week's full steam ahead is what I was told this morning.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. I just have a couple questions. All of our conversation right now is on the first building, correct? Okay, just want to clarify that. And then, term I hadn't heard before that you used in the staff report, successful building inspection. What is a successful building inspection? Is there ones that are not successful?
Certainly, yes.
Okay.
Yes, if an inspection is called and the inspector goes out and there are deficiencies in construction, something that needs to be corrected, I'm not sure that that's the technical term, but they did not pass. That was the last time that they received a successful inspection.
Thank you for that clarification. And then also, I recently became aware, at least for residential construction, you have to get or request an inspection every 6 months. Does that apply to commercial construction as well, in order to keep a building permit current?
I believe that is the case. Mr. Cowan, am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions at this time. Any other commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Kovarubias.
Katie, I think I've got a question for the applicant, just to make sure I wrap my head around the timeline and the feasibility of making it happen. Is this project, I guess for the applicant, is this project self-funded, or are there lender funds involved?
There's lender funds involved.
And so I would assume that the note that was granted for the lender funds originally had to be extended, and if so, has that extension been granted?
Yes, they decided to give us a 12-month extension on it through August of next year, just because they seem to want to work in 6 or 12-month increments, and 6 obviously was cutting it close. So they've given us a 12-month extension on it. That includes the lease-up period for the building as well.
Okay, and you said that was effective just this month?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, this is a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing and see if there's public comment. Does anybody in the room wish to address the commission on this item? Seeing none, I'll ask Marcy, do we have any callers?
Yeah, we do have a caller on the line. Barry Peterson, are you there?
I am.
Go ahead.
This is Barry Peterson. I live on the north end of Paso Robles, around Oak Street and Bonita, and I travel on Spring Street very regularly. And that building is an eyesore. I didn't know that much about the project till I tuned in and heard your discussion this afternoon or this evening. Of the 3 options that you gave, certainly I would say the third one is the most beneficial to the city and for myself. That we need some kind of proof that the contractor is going to do what he says he's going to do, because he's already exhibited that he can't do it or hasn't done it. So anyway, I would say the most you should do is a 2-week extension, so you can talk about it at your next meeting. I do have one question. Are these increments of 1 year and 2 year? Is that the only option, or are there 6-month increments or 9-month or some other thing besides the yearly extension? That's my only question.
Okay. Thank you for your input. We'll get your question addressed right now. Karen, I assume there's no other callers, or are there?
Yeah, we do have one more caller.
Okay.
Dagny Peterson?
Hi there. Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. Hi. This is Dagny Peterson. I'm another neighbor. I just wanted to make sure the Planning Commission understands what it's like to drive by this building every day. It's definitely an eyesore in a part of town that doesn't need any more eyesores. If you look at it in combination with the building next door that's just falling into disrepair, it doesn't leave a very good impression. On top of that, it's closer to the sidewalk than most buildings in town. And it's also 3 stories, which means that you can see it from Vine Street. I walk by that way a lot, and it makes me mad every time I see it. I definitely don't want construction to stop now, but I have seen it sit empty, and I've seen trash build up and weeds. So I just want to make sure that somebody's keeping an eye on this project. If the extension is for some reason given, I just want some reassurance that someone's going to be on them to not let it just sit vacant. And that's all I have to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your input. Do we have any other callers, Marcy?
No, that's it.
Okay. One last shot. Anybody in the room care to address the commission? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. And before I do that, let me retract that and ask staff if they would please address the question that came up about the 1 year versus the 2 year. And is that the only time frames that typically you can grant an extension within?
I think the Planning Commission has discretion on how long they extend the entitlements. A year or 2 years is kind of typical, but it is not the only option.
To your knowledge, have we ever done an extension other than a 1 year or 2 year?
I think my history with the city is not long enough, but Warren, I don't know, or Darren, if you're familiar with a time that we've done one for a shorter amount of time.
Yeah, it seems as though the 1 or the 2 is kind of standard practice. Okay, thank you. All right, with that, I will now officially close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Commissioner Neal.
I have a follow-up mostly for Brian. Has the permit expired?
The permit has not yet expired.
Great, thank you.
Any other question? Yes, Commissioner Covarrubias.
Katie, if we were to just do the 2 week to clarify timelines and make sure it's going to happen, then what happens then? What's the next process after that?
So we would bring this back to the Planning Commission at your next meeting. We would hopefully have more options, maybe some new conditions to add to the project, and other options for you to consider.
Okay, thank you.
Katie, could you put the options back on the screen, the 4 that you outlined? Yes, Commissioner Gibson.
So in follow-up, just to have some clarity on this, so I understand the concern, and I tend to share them as well. When I drove by, it did look like the building was deteriorating. Just driving by, it just looked like it was deteriorating, which is obviously not a good situation to have. So I sympathize with the callers, but we looked at this timeline that they gave us, and it's obviously out the window, right? So if we do a 2 week or extension to the next meeting, and they give us a up-to-date or more realistic time frame showing that something's done, and hopefully something will have started in the intervening time, what's the actual levers? Then at that point, then we say, okay, here's the new timeline, and we're going to have another do-over 3 months into it, or out of a line in the timeline, that like things aren't happening. What's the recourse? What's the point of then waiting 2 weeks for them to give us another timeline?
I think I'll also again defer to Warren or Isaac if they have comments on options.
I think, the big question was whether this project was still moving ahead.
Alive.
And we are hopeful, based on the timeline and the delivery of the windows, that would indicate that it is moving ahead. I think the benefit of giving it another 2 weeks is that I think we could obviously see if they've remobilized and it really is moving ahead or not. And then I think there's different decision paths that would be made based on what this project looks like in 2 weeks. I think right now it's kind of hard to tell exactly, what to expect over the next couple weeks, but I think in 2 weeks it'll be pretty clear what you're going to expect.
Yeah. And realistically, I think in the calendar, they'd have 3 weeks to actually have done some work. So.
Yeah, there's a extra Tuesday, so you're correct. It's a 3-week gap.
All right. Thank you. That answers my question or concern.
Any other discussion among the commissioners and or motion?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Neal?
I'd like to continue this item for the time extension request for 22-01 for vesting tentative parcel map PR 190070 until the next planning commission meeting. 9/13 date certain, to get clarity on the timeline for project restart of construction.
We have a motion.
I'll second that.
A second from Commissioner Christensen. Any discussion?
I just want to see if we could have some clarity on the timeline. It was really hard. I couldn't even find it in the staff report. So if it could be presented in a fashion that we could understand it before the next meeting, I think that would be helpful. And maybe that could be part of the motion. I'll let the motion maker contemplate that.
It's a good point, Commissioner Davis. I think that was an exhibit that we saw in chambers, but wasn't available probably in other forums. So, but you will see it next time. Any other discussion points? Yes, Commissioner Gibson.
I am in favor of this motion. And I guess not speaking on behalf of the entire commission, but just to express that when I'm hoping the message is getting across to the applicant that the construction needs to be starting on this. Other than that, I guess, that I could kind of sense on what the next step would be at the next hearing. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. My only comment would be that it seems the interests of the city here are pretty clear in moving this forward. And I take it that the comments and the financing and so forth that the applicant has talked about, these two will come together and the project will move on, but perhaps in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we'll get a better read. So any other discussion points? If not, I would ask staff to call the question on the motion in a second.
Commissioner Neal?
Aye.
Commissioner Christensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson?
Aye.
Commissioner Covarrubias?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Chairperson Kogler?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Continue date certain to September 13th agenda.
Very good. Thank you all. Okay, item H on our agenda is discussion items by staff.
There are no discussion items tonight.
Okay. There was enough pause there. I had great anticipation. Okay. Item I is our consent calendar. We have a couple of different items in the form of DRC minutes for June 6, June 20, and June 27, and Planning Commission minutes of August 9. Are there questions, comments on, first of all, the DRC minutes?
I believe, yes.
Mr. Neal.
For some reason, the June 27th, 2022 meeting seems unbelievably familiar to me. I think I was present at that meeting, as part of the DRC. Cannot remember whose place I was taking, but I do remember a discussion on these two items.
Okay, we can verify the attendees on that one. Any other comments on the DRC minutes? Okay, how about Planning Commission minutes? Any comments there? Hearing none, we would look for a motion to approve the minutes on the consent calendar.
Mr. Chairperson, I move to approve the Development Review Committee minutes from June 6th, June 20th, June 27th, 2022, noting that we need confirmation of the attendees for the June 27th DRC meeting, and also approve the Planning Commission minutes for August 9th.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, Commissioner Covarrubias. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the question.
Commissioner Gibson.
Aye.
Commissioner Covarrubias.
Aye.
Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Neal.
Aye.
Commissioner Christensen.
Aye.
Chairperson Kogler.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Okay. All right. Item J on our agenda is other reports. The first of which is the Paso Robles Street Ad Hoc Committee report. And I guess I can at least start that one off. First of all, the next meeting is going to be on the 8th of September. If I have my date correct, I think the time on that was at 4. Did we set a time?
Either 3 or 4. We can confirm that.
We'll find out. Okay. At the meeting we just had, we discussed kind of, I think, the flow of the project, if you will. And there's a series of meetings that have started and will continue to be taking place between staff and some of the significant property owners in terms of parcel size and so forth, and businesses throughout the corridor, to bring back some information that will help inform some early view, I guess, of what people think and what they like and what problems they experience. It's our intent to conduct kind of an internal working exercise, kind of a charrette, to just brainstorm ideas. Those ideas ultimately will come back to the commission, but we also talked about those going to the council for a check-in, not in any specific kind of detail, but in a very kind of loose, preliminary schematic kind of format, just to see where the council is on the level of thinking that the commission and the ad hoc committee might be putting forward. We then would see more work occurring and going back to the stakeholders, the businesses and the owners in the corridor, sometime thereafter with a presentation of what the thinking is to seek input and then make some modifications from there. I don't have it in front of me. I think we talked originally about this wrapping up in about April or so of next year, and it probably will still be a little close to that. It may slide a little bit, but that's kind of what we're thinking at the moment. Did I miss anything? Warren, would you like to add?
No, that's a good summary. We do have our first stakeholder meeting scheduled tomorrow morning with staff and one of the key property owners. And that next meeting is Thursday, September 8th, 3 p.m.
Sounds good. The other thing we talked about in the course of that meeting was whether or not it made sense to have an alternate. Sometimes we have alternates to these kinds of groups. I know the disadvantages, somebody has to get up to speed very quickly. The advantages, though, we get 3 heads, at least from the Planning Commission, better than 2. And so we talked about that, and I don't know what you think the viability of that might be. Commissioner Covarrubias was gone last time, and I was due to be gone the time before, and that one got rescheduled. What does the commission think about the potential of an alternate? Or I think Roberta is committed. I assume Rob is committed as well. Would it be feasible to appoint somebody?
I guess the question would be, would it have to be one particular person every time, or could we just do a fill-in like we do with the DRC meeting? What's your thoughts on that?
I guess my reaction is, in order to try to keep as much continuity as we could, it would be good to have the same alternate when an alternate is needed. When we first started talking about this, I think there were at least 4 of us that expressed interest in the committee, and the committee could only be 3. I know Commissioner Neal had some interest as well, but other commissioners might as well.
I'm happy to fill in, but like I said, if you want it to be a specific alternate, that's fine. Or if Commissioner Neal wants to do it, that's fine. I'm okay with that.
I don't think we necessarily have to subscribe to my comment about it should be one person, but I think it helps to have as much continuity as we could. Were you going to address this, or else Commissioner Gibson? I got kind of 2 motions going on here.
I have a question actually for legal staff. So it seemed that if there's 4 involved in that committee, that wouldn't it then turn it into a public hearing where we'd have to be posting agendas?
That's correct, Commissioner. The ad hoc needs to be less than a quorum of the legislative body.
I like the idea, and I also would join in along with my fellow commissioners of being interested in participating. But I think that that it turns it into a majority and
It does
something
not.
impractical.
We're talking purely an alternate. There would never be more than 3 present.
No, but it's a daisy chain, right? It's the idea that there's still 4 people involved in something, so that if the way that the Brown Act works, you cannot have a majority daisy chaining or any capacity talking about the same topic without it being a public hearing, is my understanding.
I think we would have to consider at the time the alternate were to participate in the ad hoc, what that meant for a body that is 3 members. I know other agencies do ad hocs where there is an alternate. I think it could be something where the commission can discuss the possibility of it, and we can obviously circle back about the feasibility of getting someone to step in that role. But I think Commissioner Gibson's has legitimate concerns about bringing a 4th person on. I don't know that it bars an alternate, but I think it's something that we would have to consider in real time before that hearing.
I appreciate Commissioner Gibson's comment. I think it has validity that we would have to look at. I'm going to the fact that I believe when I first started getting involved with the city, there were alternates on some of the committees. So it is a practice that's been observed in the past. Shall we defer this for the moment and seek some additional guidance from staff as to whether or not this is even remotely feasible? Sounds like it.
Let's do some research and we can talk about it at the next agenda.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, I guess since Roberta's not here, that's probably the ad hoc report. Our next item is Housing Opportunities Constraints Committee Zoning Code Update.
Staff and the consultant continue to progress on the zoning code update. It is a large undertaking. We are looking for some sort of update to both the Housing Constraints Committee and the Planning Commission, probably late September, October is probably the realistic goal on that. So there's work going on, but we're still not ready to report back to the commission on that.
Okay, we'll await further reports at subsequent meetings. Thank you. On the screen is a DRC rotation schedule, of which I know under October 8/8, my name under Covarrubias can probably be removed since I think that happened already. Anybody have conflicts that they'd like to bring to light at this point in time that we could work at adjusting?
The 5th of September, if someone can fill in for me, I don't know that, since I'll be traveling most that day. Okay,
probably Labor Day.
Yeah.
So there's no meeting that day.
I don't know why I thought, yep, it was the 5th. So that's great. Okay. Solves my problem.
That's what we're all about. Anything else? Okay, this schedule will stand for the time being, as we always do on a Planning Commission meeting basis. We can make adjustments going forward if we need to. So we're good on that. All right, we're to item K, Planning Commissioner's comments. Commissioner Davis, do you have comments for the group and staff?
I have none, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Covarrubias?
No comments.
No comment. Commissioner Neal? Mr. Christensen? No comments. Mr. Gibson?
Just as a reminder, I'm planning to be gone on September 13th, so I will not be in attendance at the regular Planning Commission meeting. If I'm here, then I'm going to be very unhappy because I'm supposed to be fishing down at Baja.
So that's the next meeting. Okay. And piggybacking on that, I am unavailable at the next meeting also. So it will be an issue of who chairs and what happens in that circumstance. I would ask staff, what happens in that circumstance? Does it go back to a past chair?
We'll probably look, we'll need somebody to start the meeting. So somebody will have somehow you'll have to make some sort of decision as a commission in terms of who you want to act as the chairperson to start the meeting. So knowing that ahead of time, if you wanted to designate that person now, that might simplify things.
I think that would make a lot of sense. Well,
Field, can you turn on your microphone?
Yeah.
We have 2 past chair people on the commission that are used to running the meetings. If they That'd be logical unless another commissioner would like to take a run at it.
To me, that made some sense, which is why I put that forward. One of those commissioners is on the line, the other is absent tonight. Commissioner Davis, would you be willing to start the next meeting, chair the next meeting?
Yes, I can do that. I'm the most past chair. Okay, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, I assume that's acceptable to the group. All right. Congratulations, Commissioner Davis. You're the one. Okay, that's it, I believe, for Planning Commission comments, unless somebody's had one come to mind. We move on to staff comments.
Yes, ethics training. So I believe we're still trying to get everybody through ethics training. My understanding is Commissioners Davis, Gibson, Jorgensen, and Neal may not have completed your online training. I think the deadline is tomorrow. We would recommend that you have it done by tomorrow at some point.
If you plan to do it tomorrow before the end of the day, I can email HR to let them know to expect that. And hopefully that will smooth that over. So if everyone. So then I'll also check with HR to see what happens if it is not done tomorrow, and we can go from there. But please get it done tomorrow. Thank you.
Does everybody have the links and whatnot that they need?
I sent it today, earlier this morning as a reminder, so it should be in your PR City email in the top of your
Yeah,
inbox.
I have one. Speak, this is Davis. I got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And did I hear Commissioner Jorgensen's name on the list too? And she's unavailable right now. I assume she got the email. Perhaps an extra reach out to her to make sure that.
Yes, she should have gotten the email as well. I'll again check with HR tomorrow to see what happens.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, some other quick updates. There's a special city council meeting tomorrow evening. Council agenda item will be to appoint a replacement to Maria Garcia's vacant seat. That will be through the end of this year, and then that seat will be formally filled by an election for that seat, which is District 2 after the election. The Olson specific plan continues to move forward. The council's finalized the community facility district formation process for the Olson project, and the Beechwood specific plan project is right now in the middle of their community facility district formation process, so that'll be on the next council agenda. The council does not have a meeting on September 6th, so the first and only meeting in September for the council will be September 20th. The community facility districts have two functions. One is to fund city services to pay for services like police, fire, public works within the specific plan areas. And with the Olson project, there's also a secondary facility district that pays for infrastructure, both inside the track and off-site track improvements. So those were both part of the original project approvals by Commission and Council. And I think that is all I have. Darren, anything else? Conclude staff's report.
Thank you. One other comment just came into my head. We had tried to get the Planning Commission together months ago for a photo. Remember that?
Yeah, we did have a photo, I think, that Warren took on his cell phone the first night
That's right.
back.
We did that in the chambers, didn't we? Thank you.
Yeah, and so they were using that as a placeholder. I'll check back in with the city manager's office to see if they are still wanting to get a professional photo.
Oh, that's fine. I'm sure Warren's is professional enough given his subject matter. Okay, the only thing left on our agenda is the matter M of adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
Motion by Commissioner Christensen, seconded
second.
by Commissioner Gibson. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. We're done. Thank you all.